Arrogant CEO publicly humiliates a black custodian in front of the entire office, laughing, mocking her uniform, and ordering security to throw her out like she was nothing. But seconds later, the room falls silent. When a single phone call reveals the truth. The quiet woman he just insulted is the secret billionaire investor behind the company, protected by the most feared Korean Mafia network, and in that moment, the CEO realizes he has just destroyed his own career, his reputation, and possibly his future. Marcus Thorne didn't just step on the mop, he ground his $3,000 Italian leather heel into the gray fibers like he was crushing a cockroach. He didn't see a human being. He saw a nuisance, a smudge on the pristine glass of his ego. "Clean it up, Sarah," he spat, the word clean sounding like a sentence of execution. The coffee puddle expanded, reflecting the neon lights of the 40th floor, but Thorne was too busy looking at his watch to notice the reflection of his own downfall. This isn't just a story about a rude boss. It's a recurring glitch in the human operating system. History is a graveyard of men who mistook their loud voices for actual power. The truth is, power is a hallucinogen. It blinds. Those who understand the rhythm of history know that the loudest person in the room is rarely the one holding the keys. If you're the type who looks beneath the surface, you've already realized that Thorne is a walking ghost. He just hasn't stopped breathing yet. Sarah looked up. Her eyes weren't filled with the tears he expected. They were filled with something much colder. Data. She wasn't just calculating the cost of the stain. She was calculating the cost of his soul. Every century, we see the same play. The Sun King at Versailles thought his servants were furniture. The Romanovs thought their peasants were backdrop scenery. They all learned the same lesson. Power isn't found in the corner office. It's found in the shadows where the real money moves. Most people are blind to this. They watch the news and think they see the world. If you value the raw truth over the polished lie, you belong here. Now, look closer at Sarah's hands. They weren't just calloused from scrubbing floors. They were steady with the patience of a sniper. Thorne didn't know about the guy. He didn't know about the secret rotating credit associations that have quietly funded empires from the backstreets of Seoul to the skyscrapers of New York. He didn't know that the woman he just called trash was the primary liquidity provider for the very private equity firm that held his debt. This is the reality. The world is a web, and Thorne was a fly shouting at the spider. He thought he was the architect. He was just the decoration. The truth about the Korean underworld, the Kangpae, is that it doesn't look like a movie. It doesn't always wear a suit. It looks like a grandmother. It looks like a quiet investor. It looks like a janitor who knows your passcodes because you were too arrogant to think she could read. Thorne continued his tirade. His voice echoed through the hollow atrium. He mentioned her station. He mentioned replacement. He was digging a grave and calling it a foundation. Most people would have scrolled past this because they prefer the comfort of ignorance. If you're still here, you're looking for the patterns I've spent years tracking. Why does this happen? Why do the powerful always succumb to this specific brand of blindness? It's a biological failure. Success shrinks the prefrontal cortex's ability to process empathy, making the CEO literally incapable of seeing the custodian as a threat. It's an evolutionary trap. And Sarah, she was the predator that the trap was designed to catch. She waited. Silence is the ultimate weapon of the truly powerful. While Thorne ranted about a spilled latte, Sarah was mentally signing the order to Margin call his entire life's work. She didn't need to scream. She didn't need to cry. She just needed to finish the floor. Because in 10 minutes, Thorne wouldn't even own the mop he was standing on. The cycle was repeating. The servant was becoming the master, not through a revolution, but through a simple, quiet transfer of capital. Thorne's arrogance was his signature on his own death warrant. He was a dead man walking, dressed in a suit that Sarah's interest payments probably paid for. Look at the history of the Medici. They weren't kings. They were bankers who stayed in the background until they owned the papacy. Sarah was playing the same game, just with a different skin. The janitor persona wasn't a disguise. It was a vantage point. From the floor, you see everything. You see who is cheating on their taxes. You see who is snorting lines in the executive washroom. You see the cracks in the marble. Thorne thought he was looking down at her, but she was the one looking at his foundation, and she found it crumbling. The irony isn't just thick, it's structural. You see this everywhere if you look. The tech giant ignored by the gatekeeper, the artist mocked by the critic. It's the oldest story in the book, yet we act surprised every time the curtain falls. Thorne was about to learn that in the high-stakes world of global finance, a mop can be just as lethal as a pen. He was shouting at the person who owned his mortgage, his car, and his very future. He was a king without a kingdom, yelling at the queen who had already bought his throne for scrap metal. The lesson is simple. Never mistake a role for a soul. Thorne saw a uniform. He should have been looking for the shadow. By the time he realizes his mistake, the coffee will be dry, and his empire will be dust. The history of power is not written in the headlines. It is written in the ledgers of those we choose not to see. And Sarah was a master calligrapher. You probably think you'd see it coming. You tell yourself that if someone were dismantling your life brick by brick, you'd feel the draft. You're wrong. The most dangerous people in your life don't carry guns or wear masks. They carry clipboards and wear high-visibility vests. They are the background noise of your existence. Thorne's mistake wasn't just being a prick, it was a fundamental failure of perception. He looked at a woman with a mop and saw a servant. He should have seen a predator in camouflage. This is how the world actually works. Not through grand speeches in parliaments, but through the silent movement of digits on a screen while the important people are busy being seen. If you're the type of person who values the cold, hard mechanics of reality over the comfortable lies of the status quo, you belong in this circle. Thorne was a masterpiece of ego. He thought his wealth was a fortress. It was actually a cage with glass walls, and Sarah was the one holding the Windex. While he was busy shouting about quarterly projections, she was buying up his debt for pennies on the dollar through shell companies he didn't even know existed. Think about that. The person you despise, the one you don't even bother to learn the name of, could literally own your heartbeat by lunch. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? You sitting there, watching this, probably feeling a bit smug because you aren't Thorne. But look closer. Who has the keys to your apartment? Who processes your payroll? Who sees your search history? The infrastructure of your life is managed by people you treat as NPCs in the game of your life. Power is silent. Noise is for the weak. Thorne's yelling was the sound of a dying engine. Sarah's silence was the hum of a guillotine being sharpened. She knew something he didn't. Capital has no loyalty to its current owner. It only cares about flow. And the flow had changed direction. He was standing in a desert, screaming at the clouds for rain, while Sarah had already diverted the river miles upstream. This isn't just a story about a bad boss getting his comeuppance. It's an autopsy of the modern hierarchy. We are taught to look up for threats. We watch the CEOs, the politicians, the influencers. We ignore the foundation. But when the foundation decides to move, the penthouse is the first thing to hit the dirt. If you're beginning to realize that the world you see is just a stage play for the blind, then you're finally starting to wake up. Thorne's empire didn't collapse because of a market crash. It collapsed because of a spreadsheet. Sarah found the vulnerabilities. She didn't need to hack into his mainframe. She just needed to read the trash. People leave their secrets in the most obvious places because they assume no one important is looking. They leave documents on printers. They talk loudly on burner phones in the stairwell. They treat the service staff like furniture. But furniture doesn't take notes. Sarah took notes. She mapped the cracks in his character and matched them with the holes in his balance sheet. It was a perfect synchronization of human failure and financial reality. Look at the mechanics of the margin call. It's a beautiful, brutal thing. It's the moment the bank stops believing in your potential and starts caring about its collateral. Thorne's collateral was a lie. He had leveraged his arrogance to buy more arrogance, a feedback loop of debt that required absolute stability to survive. Sarah didn't need to push him. She just needed to stop supporting the weight. She retracted the invisible hand that kept his house of cards standing. When the call came, he didn't even have the liquid assets to cover his own dry cleaning. He was a billionaire on paper and a beggar in reality. The tragedy or the comedy, depending on your tax bracket, is that Thorne will never understand why it happened. He will blame the market. He will blame betrayal by his board. He will blame the government. He will never blame the woman he told to miss a spot on the floor. His brain literally cannot process her as a threat. That is the ultimate blind spot. We are programmed to fear those above us and ignore those below us. It's a survival instinct that has become a fatal flaw in the information age. In a world where data is the only real currency, the person who gathers it has more power than the person who spends it. Sarah walked out of that building not just with his money, but with his dignity in a bucket. She didn't feel a shred of guilt. Why should she? Thorne was a relic. He was a dinosaur who thought the asteroid was just a very bright star he could buy. He lived in a world of titles and prestige. She lived in a world of leverage and liquidity. The two worlds collided, and the result was never in doubt. The predator doesn't care how the prey feels. It only cares about the kill. The lesson is brutal and final. Your status is a hallucination. Your titles are a joke. The only thing that is real is the ledger. Everything else is just theater. Thorne was the lead actor in a play that had already been canceled. Sarah was the landlord who turned off the lights and changed the locks while he was still taking his bow. Don't be Thorne. Don't look at the uniform. Look at the eyes. Don't look at the role. Look at the leverage. Because right now, someone you've never noticed is probably deciding what your life is worth on the open market. And if you're not the one holding the mop, you're the one being swept away. The throne wasn't stolen. It was repossessed. And in the end, the only thing Thorne owned was the silence that followed his last scream. Empire is a fleeting shadow. The ledger, however, is eternal. Sarah didn't just win the game. She bought the stadium and demolished it for the insurance money. That is the truth. That is the reality. Welcome to the new world order, where the invisible are the only ones who truly see. Power is a ghost. It haunts the hallways of ivory towers, but it sleeps in the server rooms and the trash bins. You think the person at the top of the pyramid is the one holding it up? Wrong. The pyramid is held up by the people who know where the cracks are. Thorne believed his bank account was a fortress. It was a paper bag in a rainstorm. The truth is that we have entered an era where the traditional hierarchies are not just failing, they are being inverted in real time. Most people will watch this and see a simple story about a heist or a bitter employee. You are seeing a blueprint for the coming century. If you are one of the few who values the architecture of power over the gaudy decoration of status, make sure you stay within this circle of insight, because the surface is a lie. Look at your own life. Who really holds the leverage? Is it your boss? Or is it the IT guy who saw your search history? Is it the politician on the news? Or the intern who handles the encrypted leaks? Leverage is the only currency that doesn't inflate. Thorne had wealth, but Sarah had proximity. In the digital age, proximity is better than gold. We are obsessed with the great men of history, while the invisible people are the ones rewriting the code. Think about the arrogance required to ignore someone who cleans your toilet. It's a specific kind of blindness, a fatal one. It's the same blindness that makes a CEO believe his data is safe because he bought $1 million firewall while he leaves his unlocked phone on a restaurant table. The firewall is a wall, the phone is a door, and doors have handles, and it gets worse. This isn't just about one man's downfall. This is about the death of the legacy elite. They are slow, they are loud, they are heavy. The new power is light. It moves through fiber optic cables and whispers in break rooms. It doesn't wear a suit. It wears a uniform or a hoodie or nothing at all. The math is simple. The more you have to lose, the easier you are to bleed. Thorn was a giant target. Sarah was a needle in a haystack. You can't fight a needle. You can only wait to get pricked. Stop lying to yourself about how the world works. You were told that if you work hard and climb the ladder, you'll be safe. The ladder is rotten. Every rung you climb just makes the fall longer. The people at the bottom aren't looking up at you with envy. They are looking at the bolts holding the ladder to the wall. They have the wrenches, they have the time, and they have the silence. The reality of modern surveillance isn't a government camera on a street corner. It's the delivery driver who knows your gate code. It's the dry cleaner who knows you're cheating on your spouse because of the scent on your blazer. It's the personal assistant who knows your heart medication is running low. We have outsourced our lives to people we refuse to acknowledge as human beings. We treat them like furniture. But furniture doesn't take notes. These people do. The digital panopticon wasn't built by a dictator. It was built by us, through convenience. We traded our privacy for a 10-minute delivery window. We traded our security for the feeling of being important enough to have help. Thorn didn't see Sarah as a threat because he didn't see her as a person. To him, she was a biological vacuum cleaner, a tool, a ghost. But ghosts are the only ones who can walk through walls. Maybe you think this doesn't apply to you. Maybe you think you're mid-level and therefore safe. You're wrong. You're just a smaller target with less armor. The mechanism is the same. Leverage is being gathered on you right now. Every accept all cookies click. Every lazy password. Every time you spoke down to a service worker because you had a bad day. You are leaving a trail of blood in the water, and the sharks aren't who you think they are. They aren't the billionaires. They are the people who keep the billionaires' world running. The most dangerous person in the room is never the one talking. It's the one listening, the one who isn't supposed to be there, the one whose presence is so routine that they become part of the background noise. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. But in the kingdom of the loud, the silent man is the executioner. Thorn's empire didn't fall because of a market crash. It fell because of a mop bucket. Let that sink in. All those degrees, all those board meetings, all those millions of dollars in consulting fees, wiped out by a woman who knew which floorboard creaked. That is the New World Order. It's not about who has the most. It's about who knows the most about the person who has the most. Information isn't just power. It's the only thing that's real. Everything else is just theater. Do you still think your title protects you? A title is just a label on a box, and boxes are meant to be opened. Thorn was in a very expensive box, and Sarah just peeled back the tape. She didn't need a key. She just needed to wait for him to forget he'd left the door cracked. And he did. Because he thought he was the only one in the room. He forgot that the room itself has ears. The ledger is eternal. It records every mistake, every ego trip, every moment of weakness, and the person holding the pen isn't sitting in an office on the 50th floor. They're in the basement. They're in the shadows. They're watching you right now, and they aren't impressed. They are just waiting for the insurance money, because in the end, everything is just an asset waiting to be liquidated. Even you. Welcome to the reality you've been trying to ignore. The throne is empty. The locks have been changed, and the person with the keys is someone you've never bothered to learn the name of. Sleep well, if you can. The invisible are no longer content with just watching. They are starting to move. And when the invisible move, the whole world shakes. You're not the one in control. You're just the one paying for the electricity. The light is about to go out, and when it does, the only thing that will matter is who knows their way around in the dark. Sarah does. Do you? Or are you just another thorn waiting for the asteroid to hit? The truth is, the asteroid has already landed. You're just still waiting for the sound of the impact. Stop waiting. It's already over. The ledger is closed. The debt is paid. And you're the one who's bankrupt. That is the verdict. There is no appeal. The throne didn't just move. It vanished. And all that's left is the cold, hard floor that Sarah just finished cleaning. Watch your step. It's slippery. And there's no one left to catch you when you fall. This is the end of the old world. Don't bother saying goodbye. It wouldn't hear you anyway. History is a circle of fire, and we are all just charcoal waiting for the spark. You think you are living through a unique revolution, a digital awakening, or a paradigm shift that will change the fabric of humanity forever. You aren't. You're living through a rerun. The actors have better teeth and the sets are made of silicon instead of sandstone, but the script hasn't changed since the first king decided he was a god and the first peasant realized the king bled just like everyone else. Every empire thinks it's the exception to the rule. Every thorn believes their throne is bolted to the center of the universe. They're wrong. History is a shark. It doesn't sleep and it doesn't care about your feelings. It just eats. Look at the Bronze Age. Look at the decadence of the late Roman Republic. Look at the Sun King in France. They all had their versions of thorn. They all had their complex systems that were too big to fail. They all had their invisible armies of Sarahs, the people who actually understood how the gears turned while the elites were busy arguing about the color of the curtains. And every single time, without fail, the system collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. The complexity becomes a cage. The elites become so disconnected from the ground that they forget what dirt feels like. That's when the Sarahs of the world realize they don't need to storm the palace. They just need to stop maintaining it. If you stop cleaning the floors, the dust eventually becomes a mountain. If you stop fixing the leaks, the ocean takes the basement. Power isn't seized. It's inherited by the last person left standing in the ruins. This isn't a theory. It's a biological certainty. Systems, like bodies, have a shelf life. They grow, they peak, they rot. We are currently in the deep rot phase. The smell is everywhere, but we've called it innovation and disruption to keep from vomiting. Thorn isn't a villain in a movie. He's a symptom. He's the physical manifestation of a system that has run out of ideas and is now just cannibalizing itself for parts. He thinks he's an architect. He's actually just a parasite that's run out of blood to drink. And Sarah? She isn't a hero. She's the immune response. She is the harsh reality that comes to clear out the infection. It's brutal. It's ugly. And it's happened 1,000 times before. The cycle demands a sacrifice. In the past, it was gold and grain. Today, it's data and attention. But the underlying currency is always the same. Trust. Once the people in the shadows realize the people in the light are just faking it, the game is over. You can't rule a world that has seen behind the curtain. Thorn forgot that his power was a gift, not a right. He thought the walls were there to keep the world out. He didn't realize they were there to keep him in. Now the walls are crumbling, and the outside is coming for him. It doesn't want his money. It doesn't want his title. It wants the one thing he can't give back, the time he stole. Nature abhors a vacuum, but it hates a fake even more. The digital age hasn't broken the cycle, it's just accelerated it. We are collapsing at fiber optic speeds. The Great Reset, or whatever buzzword the elites are using this week, is just a desperate attempt to put a new coat of paint on a sinking ship. They know the ledger is unbalanced. They know the debt is unpayable. They are trying to negotiate with gravity. Good luck with that. Gravity doesn't negotiate, it just pulls. And right now, the weight of 1,000 years of ego is pulling the entire structure into the abyss. You see it in the way people talk. You see it in the way the institutions are failing. Nobody believes the experts anymore because the experts have been wrong about everything that actually matters. They can tell you the price of a stock, but they can't tell you how to fix a broken society. They are technocrats in a world that needs poets and warriors. They are thorns trying to solve a spiritual crisis with an Excel spreadsheet. It's pathetic. It's like trying to put out a forest fire with a water pistol. Meanwhile, the Sarahs are already moving on. They aren't trying to save the old world. They are building the new one in the gaps between the rubble. They are the ones who know how to grow food, how to build machines, and how to survive without a Wi-Fi connection. They are the future, and Thorn is the past. The tragedy of the Thorn archetype is the delusion of permanence. He believes that because he has a marble lobby, he is immortal. He looks at the history books and thinks, that won't happen to me. I have AI. I have global trade networks. I have a private jet. He doesn't understand that those are just more points of failure. The more complex a system is, the more fragile it becomes. A single pebble can stop a multi-billion-dollar machine if it's placed in the right gear. Sarah knows where that gear is. She's been watching it spin for years. She knows exactly how much pressure it takes to make it shatter. Think about the Library of Alexandria. Think about the burning of Rome. These weren't accidents. They were the inevitable conclusions of stories that had gone on for too long. We are in the final chapter of our current story. The ink is running dry. The author is tired. The audience is leaving the theater. You can stay and watch the credits roll if you want, but the building is already on fire. The smart move isn't to try and save the furniture. The smart move is to follow Sarah out the back door. She knows the way. She's been through this before. The cycle is relentless. It doesn't care if you're ready. It doesn't care if you're a good person. It only cares about equilibrium. The scales are being leveled. The high will be brought low, and the low will be elevated, until they too become arrogant, and the whole thing starts again. It's a beautiful, terrifying dance. And we are right at the moment where the music stops. The silence that follows won't be empty. It will be full of the sounds of the old world being dismantled, bolt, by the people who were never supposed to have the tools. Stop looking at the screen. Look at the hands that built it. Look at the people who clean the offices where the algorithms are written. Look at the delivery drivers who keep the frictionless economy moving. They are the ones with the real power. They are the ones who can turn the world off with a single decision. Thorne thinks he owns the platform. Sarah knows she owns the electricity. Who do you think wins that fight? Hint. It's not the guy with the blue check mark. It's the person who knows how to operate the circuit breaker. This isn't a warning. It's a post-mortem. The patient died years ago. We've just been using high-voltage shocks to keep the heart twitching so we don't have to deal with the funeral. But the battery is dying. The shocks are getting weaker. The twitching is stopping. Soon, there will be nothing left but the truth. And the truth is that no empire survives its own success. We've succeeded ourselves into oblivion. We've optimized everything until there's no soul left in anything. We've traded meaning for convenience, and now we're surprised that everything feels empty. The new world won't be televised. It won't be on social media. It will be lived in the quiet places, in the small communities, in the direct interactions between people who actually trust each other. It will be a world of Sarahs, and the Thorns of the world will be left in their gated communities, wondering why the gates won't open and why the help isn't answering the phone. They will be masters of a graveyard. They will have all the money in the world and nothing to buy with it. That is the ultimate irony of the cycle. The winners end up with everything, only to find that everything is nothing when there's no one left to serve them. The ledger is closed, the debt is settled, history has moved on, and it didn't even leave a note. You're standing on the edge of a new dark age, but don't be afraid. The dark is only scary if you're trying to find something you lost. If you're looking for something new, the dark is where you start. Sarah is already there, light in hand, waiting for the dust to settle. She isn't looking back. Why should you? The old world was a lie anyway. A gilded, hollow, exhausted lie. Let it burn. The ashes will make the soil richer for whatever comes next, and whatever comes next will be real. It will be hard. It will be dangerous. But it will be ours. The throne is gone. The crown is melted. The king is just a man in an expensive suit, crying in a room that no longer recognizes his authority. The cycle has completed its turn. Welcome to the beginning of the end. Or the end of the beginning. It doesn't really matter what you call it. All that matters is that you're awake. And now that you're awake, you have a choice. You can try to glue the pieces of the old world back together, or you can start walking. Sarah is already miles ahead of you. Better start moving. The sun is going down, and the night is going to be very, very long. But for the first time in a long time, the air is clear. Can you smell it? That's the smell of a world without thorns. It smells like sweat. It smells like iron. It smells like freedom. It's going to be a brutal transition. But then again, birth always is. The old world is dead. Long live the reality. History is a cannibal. It feeds on the hubris of men who believe they have finally domesticated it. You think you are living through something unique, some unprecedented digital apocalypse or a singular political collapse. You aren't. This is the oldest story ever told. It is a biological rhythm, a heartbeat that takes centuries to complete a single thrum. The thorns of every era, whether they wore silk togas, velvet doublets, or tailored Italian suits, always make the same fatal mistake. They mistake their control over the ledger for control over the soul of the world. They think that because they own the map, they own the terrain. But the terrain is Sarah. The terrain is the person who knows how to fix the engine, how to grow the grain, and how to survive when the power grid becomes a monument to a forgotten god. Look at the patterns. They are screaming at you. The Bronze Age didn't end because people forgot how to make tools. It ended because the elites became so specialized, so insulated, and so parasitic that a single hiccup in the trade routes turned their golden cities into mass graves. They were the masters of everything and the providers of nothing. Sound familiar? It should. We are currently watching the same movie, just with higher resolution screens. You see these titans of industry building bunkers in New Zealand, and you think they have a plan. They don't. A bunker is just a high-tech coffin if there's no one outside to deliver the oxygen. They are terrified because deep down, they realize that their entire reality is built on a collective hallucination. They've spent decades devaluing the physical world, the labor of the hand, and the sovereignty of the local community. Now, the bill is due, and they don't have the currency to pay it. You might feel a sense of dread. That's natural. We've been conditioned to fear the silence. We've been taught that without the thorn-led structure, there is only chaos. But that is the ultimate lie of the ruling class. They want you to believe that you need their permission to exist. They want you to believe that Sarah is dangerous because she is unregulated. The truth is far simpler and much more terrifying for them. Sarah is the only thing that is real. The Thorn Empire is a parasitic growth that has mistaken itself for the host. When the parasite dies, the host might be scarred, it might be weak, but for the first time in generations, it will be able to breathe. Think about the sheer arrogance of a system that prioritizes a digital derivative over a gallon of clean water. We have built a civilization on the optimization of human suffering, squeezing every last drop of efficiency out of people who are already at their breaking point. This isn't sustainable. It never was. The cycle doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your political affiliations. It only cares about equilibrium. When the top of the pyramid becomes too heavy for the base to support, gravity takes over. It's not a tragedy. It's physics. You are standing at the junction. You can see the cracks in the pavement and the flickering of the lights. Don't waste your time trying to patch the holes. The structure is compromised down to the foundation. Instead, look at your hands. What can they do? Look at your neighbors. Who can you trust? The coming era won't be defined by who has the most followers or who has the highest net worth. It will be defined by who can provide value in a world where the value is no longer dictated by a central bank. It's a return to the visceral, a return to the tangible, a return to the human. The thorns will scream. They will try to use their dying breath to convince you that the world is ending. It isn't. Their world is ending. Yours is just getting started. This is the great shedding of the skin. It's messy. It's painful. It's necessary. We have been living in a curated, sterile simulation for so long that we've forgotten what it feels like to touch the earth. We've forgotten that true power doesn't come from a mandate or a title. It comes from the ability to survive and thrive when the mandates lose their meaning. The verdict is final and it is non-negotiable. The age of the parasite is over. History has reached its expiration date on the current model, and the reset is already in motion. No amount of lobbying, no amount of money printing, and no amount of surveillance can stop the rotation of the wheel. We are moving from a world of artificial scarcity to a world of brutal honesty. The thorns are irrelevant. They are ghosts haunting a house that has already been demolished. The future belongs to the Sarahs. It belongs to the makers, the fixers, and the ones who were never invited to the gala in the first place. The dark age isn't a hole you fall into, it's a tunnel you walk through. And on the other side, the air won't just be clear. It will be heavy with the scent of a world that is finally, mercifully awake. You were never meant to be a cog in their machine. You were meant to be the master of your own. The machine is breaking. Don't try to fix it. Let it shatter. The pieces will make excellent foundations for the home you're about to build. The cycle has turned. The giants are falling. The noise is deafening. But listen closely, underneath the crash of the old world, and you'll hear something beautiful. It's the sound of 1 billion people realizing they don't need kings. It's the sound of the morning. It's the sound of the truth. Sleep well, Thorn. Your shift is over. Sarah is taking over now, and she doesn't need your help. Everything you were told was essential is actually a burden. Everything you were told was permanent is actually a vapor. The only thing that remains when the smoke clears is the person standing next to you and the skills you carry in your bones. The great irony is that the end of the world is actually the beginning of your life. History is done with the actors. It's looking for the authors. Stop watching the fire and start looking at what it's revealing. The stage is gone. The lights are out. The performance is over. Now, finally, we can start the real work. This isn't the first time the sky has fallen. It's just the first time you've been awake to see the cracks. We suffer from the terminal arrogance of the present, convinced our skyscrapers are permanent while the dust of 12 forgotten empires settles beneath our boots. Rome didn't fall in a day. It rotted. It groaned. Then a gentle breeze tipped it over. We are feeling that breeze right now. The truth is that progress is a hollow myth told by people who want to sell you a newer version of your own chains. History doesn't march. It spins. It grinds. It chews up the complacent and spits out the prepared. They told you the world was ending. They lied. Only their world is ending. Yours is just starting. The era of the bloated middleman is over because the math is broken. The debt is due. The spirit is dry. The system has reached its maximum level of tolerable parasitic load. Don't weep for the institutions. Don't try to catch the falling knife. The verdict is final. The collapse is the cure. You are standing at the edge of a great clearing. The overgrowth of a century of lies is being burned away. And while the fire is terrifying, the ash it leaves behind is the only soil that can grow something worth keeping. The giants are gone. The scripts are burned. The cycle has completed its turn, and the weight of the world has shifted from the shoulders of the kings to the calloused hands of the makers. Look at your hands. They weren't meant for clicking buttons in a dying cage. They were meant for the earth, for the steel, for the reality that exists when the screens finally flicker and die. The show is over. The audience has left. Step off the stage. Walk into the sun. It's a cold morning, but for the first time in your life, you are actually, finally, undeniably free.